It is said that in the right hand of God lies 7 heavenly seals. When God opens the first 4 seals, 4 monstrous human-shaped beasts will ride on 4 steeds of white, red, black, and pale green, symbolizing invasion, war, famine, and death. The story of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse that brings about the destruction of the world is written in the last book of the New Testament, the book of Revelation by St. John, which mainly contains prophecies about the final judgment day. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse in the Bible, they do not have names and are only distinguished by the colors of the horses they ride and the calamities they bring. However, they are often referred to as death, war, pestilence, and famine. This is a story about the mysteries and origins surrounding these horsemen. Each episode will tell the origin story of each horseman, the 12 seals that open the gates of hell, and the reason why Lucifer was able to break the seals of the horsemen and control them. The 4 horsemen were once righteous gods, once good beings, and once brave leaders. But why did heaven forsake them?
Chapter 1, The First Seal, Conquest of the Horsemen. When the first seal was broken, a white horse soared through the sky, its hooves echoing far and wide. Upon its back was a knight clad in silver armor, wearing a crown, and holding a mighty bow. He was none other than Conquest. Conquest was the first horseman, the one who would later be known as Pestilence. In his days as a god, whenever Conquest descended to earth, he was hailed and praised. He brought victory to the cities and nations caught in war. He reveled in the adulation, the wine, and the spoils of war. But one day, wearied by such empty praise, he grew disillusioned. He broke the command of the Lord, and went to a place before the appointed time, to a land that lay in the opposite direction. Alas, before him lay the most grotesque of sights, decaying flesh, trampled by scavengers, and the sounds of mourning and despair echoed all around. As he looked upon the scene, he saw the other 3 horsemen standing there. He approached War and asked, "Why? Why is this so?" War sneered in disdain and mocked him. "Oh, Conquest, noble one! Did you truly think that your victories were earned by anything other than this? This version maintains the original essence and tone, fitting the apocalyptic and dramatic style of the Book of Revelation. If you'd like any modifications or further refinements, feel free to let me know."
Chapter 2, The Second Seal. The Red Horse of War. When Conquest, Sinful, dimly appeared, following behind the ambition of domination came the flames of war. War, the infernal flame. War was the most powerful and brutal war god among the 7 heavens of the Lord. He was even glorified above all the legendary war gods. He had never been defeated in any battle, and it was said that when his thirst for blood was not satisfied, he would turn on his own soldiers. The Lord punished him and sealed him in a prison on his arm, where day and night he endured the cruelest of flames. But few knew that this bloodthirsty being once had a sorrowful past. And this is his story. In the beautiful and peaceful land of Alcadia, where the Neltham people, a race of superior beings, lived, there reigned a just king, Beoves. He was a creation that the Lord was quite pleased with, but he was slightly disappointed by their meekness and passivity. They knew only love and naivete, with intelligence but no ambition, like a beautiful yet lifeless scene. One day, the Felfim people rose up against heaven, learning magic and forging weapons to strike at the heavens. Their first target was the land of the Nelfim, seeing it as the perfect stepping stone to invade heaven. A series of small and large fortresses in Alcadia were consumed by flames, as the just king relied solely on the heavenly angelic host, Val, not understanding why the Lord he trusted had withdrawn and abandoned his army. He grieved and embraced his suffering people. The battle reached the capital of Alcadia, where the Nelfim still knew nothing of combat. They weakly resisted and were quickly defeated. Veovis looked to the heavens and cried out in despair. "O Lord, save your faithful. I would trade everything to save my people." From the heavens, a beam of light descended, and an angel in red appeared. The angel smiled at Veovis, saying that no one would save this kingdom except for its emperor. He had to fight. Veovis agreed immediately, and the red-clad angel, who would later be known as Satan, gave him a sword. The angel told him that Veovis would become an undefeated warrior. The blood of his enemies would empower him, for with every soul he took, he would grow stronger. Veovis took the sword. For the first time, he felt a weapon that captivated him, a weapon of death that made his blood boil, stoking his hatred for the savage Felfim. He went mad and screamed aloud. His entire body was engulfed in red flames, and even his people, who had always revered him, now feared the monstrous sight of their king. In that moment, he lost all consciousness. His thoughts were consumed by the words, extermination. When he awoke and looked around, there was no need to speak. Everything was gone, reduced to a sea of blood and flames. The enemy and even his own people had been destroyed in the fires of war. From that day on, no one remembered the name Veovis. They only remembered the name war.
Later, War rebelled against heaven and was sealed by the Lord onto the second seal on his right hand, never to be reborn until the day of judgment. Chapter 3, the third seal. The Black Horse of Famine. When the schemes had been laid, and war had erupted, hunger and greed also followed. At that time, the gray horse would appear, bringing with it the dust of poverty and decay. Famine, a force whose power rivaled that of death. He could consume even the most impregnable fortresses, and spread terror during wars. Famine, something humanity would never need when they had reason, for it was instinctual. Famine once delighted in watching people devour each other during great famines. Many considered him even more terrifying than war, for he brought greater suffering than death itself. Though his rank was below glory, war, and death, his power was far greater. This is the story of his origins. Before he took the name Famine, he was known in the heavens as Gok, the god who stood watch at the gate of the heavenly realms. Gok held the key to the portals that connected the heavens. The Almighty Lord granted Gok an additional responsibility to oversee the natural balance of humanity, determining which species should be eradicated and which should flourish, in order to maintain the stability of the realms. Of course, in essence, he was merely a statistician and did not possess the divine power to make such decisions. The Almighty would take care of the rest. Gok wandered far and wide, and it could be said that there was no corner of the earth that he did not know. He was a steadfast and disciplined being, admired even by angels of higher rank for his sharp intellect and impeccable judgment. Everyone believed it was only a matter of time before this gatekeeper god ascended to a higher position in heaven, perhaps becoming one of the 4 holy angels who guarded the cardinal directions. But that fateful day arrived, the day that would change him forever. Gok visited a land abundant in resources, a place so blessed by nature that anyone who came could not help but be impressed. It was one of the wealthiest nations of that time. He came to admire this place, and his stay grew longer than any other. He set aside his heavenly duties for a while. Gok, posing as a wanderer, appeared as a tourist, sketching the landscapes and documenting the creatures he encountered. One day, as he passed by a humble house, he saw a beautiful girl whose beauty left him speechless, his heart racing. The girl saw him and smiled brightly, starting a conversation. Since Gok had traveled so much, their conversation continued endlessly, as though it could never end. Gok and the girl soon fell in love, although such a relationship was strictly forbidden in heaven.
After spending much time together, Gok decided he would remain. He did not reveal his true identity to the girl and promised he would marry her. He returned to heaven, intending to hand over his responsibilities and powers in order to live a mortal life. When he reached the gates of heaven, he encountered Lucifer. Seeing Gok, adorned with his laurel wreath and holding his divine staff, Lucifer stopped him and asked, "So, you wish to abandon heaven for a woman?" "Yes, I find mortal life far more fascinating, and I wish to live on earth, my lord." "How foolish! The scum of earth are constantly trying to climb up here, and yet you want to wallow in the mud. Most revered archangel, I know you despise them, but humans have much to teach us." "Shut up! How could you not loathe them? You've traveled extensively, haven't you grown disgusted by those who should have been extinct long ago? I understand that there are many things on earth that even the Almighty cannot intervene in, but I also understand that everything has its balance. Nothing is absolutely perfect, not even you." Lucifer glared at Gok in anger. As the Supreme Being, being rebuked by a subordinate was a great insult. Lucifer could no longer restrain his temper. He grabbed Gok by the collar, raising his staff high as if to strike him down. But suddenly, Lucifer smiled and gently lowered Gok. Gok, wise as he was, knew Lucifer would never act rashly and harm him. Lucifer lowered his voice and said, "You are right, but not entirely. You are a gifted being in heaven, with great responsibilities. How can you abandon all that? I have realized that love is stronger than all power, stronger than any warrior's sword. I am tired of my duties, and I wish to rest." Well, then, are you sure she won't betray you?" "I do not care. I trust the one I love completely." Gok answered firmly, his expression unchanged. Lucifer knew this was Gok's nature, so he stepped behind him and whispered in his ear, "You will see. Humans are not like us. Everything can change, even their hearts. Soon, hum, hum, hum." Lucifer left, and Gok did not look back. Behind that gate stood the one he had once revered, and now he would bid farewell. But Gog did not touch the gate. He stood still, deep in thought. How long he stood there, he did not know, but with a snap of his fingers, he appeared in the girl's house, invisible. He watched as she went about her day, but then he saw her approach a box. Silently, he crept up behind her and looked inside. There, lying in the box, was a beautiful necklace. He had never given her such a gift. Why did she have it? The girl softly called out. "Come out, I know you're here." How could she see him, even though he was invisible? Was it the intuition of two lovers? He smiled and was about to speak when a young man stepped out from behind the curtain. The girl and the man embraced, as if they were already intimately familiar with each other. "Why don't you visit me more often?"
I fear that fool might return at any moment, so I must be cautious. Ha! He'll be trapped soon enough, even the gods don't know how I perform. After they spoke, Gog stood motionless, his breath quickening. He flew off in a rush, his mind reeling. No matter how far he flew, no matter how long, the image of his beloved betraying him haunted him. Gog landed in hell, at the river of forgetfulness, to drink from its waters. When he arrived, Lucifer was already there, smiling mockingly. "So, earth is as dull as heaven, so you wish to come here? I now know I was wrong. I need to forget. You still don't understand. A being like you can't forget. This water won't work on you. Then what must I do?" Gog shouted, his anger boiling over. Lucifer smiled and placed a hand on Gog's shoulder. "Use your power to swallow up all the filth." With that, Lucifer disappeared. Gog clenched his fists, consumed by terrifying thoughts. The girl Gog loved entered the house and was startled to find Gog sitting on the chair. She was a little frightened at first, but quickly changed her demeanor, a true-born actress. "When did you return?" "Trying to surprise me." "Do you have a gift for me?" "Ah, I've come back with a gift for you." With that, Gog revealed the severed head of her lover. The girl screamed and fainted. Gog stood there, his wings now blackened, having broken heaven's laws by killing. He spread his wings and flew high enough to block the entire city with his hand. In one night, he turned the wealthy city into the poorest place on earth, transforming everything beautiful into something ugly, like turning flowers into dung. Gog pondered the vile nature of humankind in that capital. Famine and disease spread throughout. When the heavenly army arrived, he was already gone. Knowing the movements of the celestial legions made it difficult for them to capture him. From that day on, he was known as Famine, the hell of hunger. His cruelty surpassed even that of war.
The final seal. The horse of death. When the smoke and flames of war have passed, and the natural disasters fade, what remains are the souls who gaze upon their bodies for the last time. Then, a grayish-green, skeletal horse will come, dragging these souls along. The horse of death appears, carrying a pale and gaunt figure wrapped in a black cloak. Life and death follow their cyclical course, and all things obey this law. Death brings an end to everything, regardless of wealth, age, status, or even divinity. No one is exempt from death. The grim reaper comes and goes as gently as the morning mist, often accompanied by a light rain wherever he appears. His true name is Amigo. Death has been his power since the dawn of creation, his strength rivaling that of the Lord himself. While the Lord gives life and nurtures it, Amigo's role is to take it away in order to maintain balance. Amigo lives quietly, preferring solitude. No one dares to approach him, for even the slightest cough from him could claim their life. This is why this god resides in a secluded place in hell, where the sinful souls cry out daily. He enjoys reading books and conversing with scholarly spirits. He does not fear death, rather, he believes that a life devoid of death is far worse. Human existence is born of suffering, and he merely ends that suffering. Like Gok, Amigo also roams the realms, but he was the last of the horsemen. He was not sealed away because he was forced to, but rather because he willingly chose it. This is the story of the one knight who defied all of Lucifer's commands. He was not a warmonger or a cruel being, in fact, his very existence was terrifying enough. In a small town, there lived a devout and pure orphan girl named Ella. She was kind-hearted and always helped others. One day, Amigo passed through the town on horseback and stopped to ask for a drink of water, just like a mortal. Ella welcomed him like family, even though she noticed that wherever he passed, the grass withered and the sky grew dark. She expressed her hope that everyone could live happily. Amigo felt a deep affection for this girl. She helped others selflessly, with no ulterior motives. She was innocent and carefree, like a bright, warm star. He often visited, bringing her books he had collected, and over time, he began to see her as a daughter. He taught her many things and helped her fulfill her dream of becoming a healer. Eventually, he shared his true identity with her, but she did not fear or avoid him. Instead, she loved him even more. One day, she said to him, "I wish everyone in this world could live forever." He smiled and replied, "My child, if you wish, I will make sure that no one in your land dies." "Really?" she asked. "I am death, and what reason would I have to lie to you?" he said. "Then that's wonderful. I'll go tell everyone," she exclaimed, filled with joy.
Below is the English translation of your text, adapted into the apocalyptic and eschatological context of the Book of Revelation. I've woven in thematic elements such as divine judgment, demonic forces, and the end times atmosphere characteristic of Revelation, while preserving the narrative's core events and emotional weight. No sooner had she finished speaking and the door of Ella's house was kicked wide open. Unbeknownst to her, ever since she had become despised, the town had set watchmen over her. The young men who had been eavesdropping outside stormed in, seizing her and the two children. They dragged her to the center of the village and bound her to a wooden stake. The mayor, having overheard the youth's chatter, stepped forward and proclaimed, "This accursed beast seeks to slay us all under the guise of breaking a curse." "No," Ella cried, "I only wish to atone for my mistakes. I don't want anyone else to suffer." "Silence her," roared the crowd. "Yes, kill her." "Burn her," they shouted in unison. "Very well," the mayor declared. "Prepare the pyre and burn this fiend tonight, along with the two demons spawned beside her." "I beg you," Ella pleaded, "they're just children, they've done nothing. Let them go." Humph, he sneered, no one wants to hear your deceitful words any longer. The pyre was swiftly erected, and all the townsfolk gathered to witness the execution of the girl. Ha, let's see, one muttered. They say she's the daughter of Death himself. What should we do? Let's see if this one burns first, another replied. Enough of this nonsense. The children were being led forward. Ella continued to beg for their lives, tears streaming down her face. Roan's anger flared visibly. As they dragged him toward the pyre, he offered no resistance, until, nearing the flames, he broke free and bellowed. You treacherous fools! Wasted was my lady's concern for you. Prepare yourselves for our judgment, Liffley. Roan glanced at the girl in red, who nodded in silent agreement. At her signal, the boy wrenched his arms from the executioner's grip and sank his teeth into the man's arm, tearing off a chunk of flesh. The executioner howled in agony, shoving Roan away. The boy chewed ravenously on the bloody morsel before spitting it into Liffley's face. Moments later, an unnatural transformation overtook the two children. Roan morphed into a towering, cold-faced young man with ashen skin, stronger and taller than any mortal. Liffley became a grown woman, wreathed in crimson mist, her eyes ablaze with infernal fire. Run, everyone! Monsters! Where's the fire? The crowd screamed. Panic erupted as the people fled, but a stranger horror emerged. The town was now sealed off, trapped within a barrier conjured by Liffley, a nightmare deity unleashed. She rose into the air, her voice a guttural echo from the abyss. You are unfit even for the depths of hell. I shall grant you a damnation of your own. The once innocent girl was now a figure of terror. Those near Roan who fell into his grasp were flayed alive, their bodies torn asunder. Ella couldn't bear to watch. Sobbing, she recalled her father's warning. She was no saint. She had blindly followed his will. Though the townsfolk had sought her death, her heart ached to see them tormented. She cried out, Roan, Liffley, spare them. This is enough. Mistress, they replied, we are unbinding the curse your father laid upon us. No, I don't want this. Humph, forgive us, but we must defy you. No. Powerless, Ella watched as Roan slaughtered every soul in the town. Their spirits were drawn into Liffley's crimson mist, condemned to an eternity beyond redemption. Overwhelmed, Ella fainted before the carnage. When she awoke, Amigo, her foster father, sat at her bedside, his hand resting on her forehead. She pushed it away and turned aside, too ashamed to meet his gaze. Why didn't you warn me of the consequences? She demanded. Because I was once like you, he said softly. What? I, too, once refused to take lives. You see, I wanted you to feel what I felt. Why? Why are you so cruel? Why let me witness such heartbreak? Because I need you to take my place. Take your place. Why? Because I will soon seal myself within the judgment of heaven. But, you know I'm soft-hearted. Why? I don't understand. My dear, he said, my power has grown beyond my control, much like those two I gave you. But, I know, Amigo interrupted. To bring death to others is no easy burden. Yet I've seen something in you, Ella. You often close the eyes of the dead, a task only the gentle-hearted can bear. Were your heart tainted with evil, humanity would face annihilation. Father. Ella reached for his hand, but he vanished like a gust of wind. From that moment, Ella became the new death of the underworld. Amigo, meanwhile, transformed into the final night of Lucifer. To this day, no one knows why he imprisoned himself. Was it as simple as he claimed, or was there a deeper reason? The fifth seal. Lamentation of the damned souls, bonus. The stone of souls, a vessel imprisoning the restless spirits of the wicked, forever barred from redemption, the birthplace of the three prime evils of hell. When the Lord crafted the earth, he wielded his might to sunder darkness from light, forging the earth from radiance with the hope it would be a pure and blessed realm, a jewel of creation. Yet he could not destroy the darkness, for the cosmic law of balance forbade it. Even his supreme power, though vast, could not erase it entirely. To safeguard his precious gem, he sealed the darkness within the prime stone, the most wondrous crystal of the universe, the very womb from which he had emerged. This stone, however, was also the harbinger of heaven's downfall.
To ensure the darkness remained contained, he entrusted the prime stone to Death, tasking him to guard it in the deepest abyss of hell, where it would slumber eternally. The souls of the damned, descending into hell, would endure torment across its many layers before being confined within the prime stone, cursed to eternal suffering without hope of release. But as time wore on, the stone absorbed countless sinful souls, and cracks began to mar its surface. The seals weakened, and the inevitable came to pass. From those fissures emerged the three prime evils, the Lord of Terror, a cunning beast of sorcery, the Lord of Hatred, fueled by unrelenting malice, and Baal, the Lord of Destruction, harbinger of ruin. Sensing the looming threat, Death appealed to the Most High. Yet, trusting in the stone's sanctity, the Lord rebuked Death for failing his duty, sealing him away as punishment. The prime stone, too, was resealed and returned to heaven, where Lucifer, the archangel, was appointed its guardian. Perhaps it was then, gazing into the stone's depths, that Lucifer glimpsed the cruelty, treachery, and darkness within humanity, the race he was forced to exalt. His thoughts of rebellion, his desire to overthrow the Most High, may well have been born from the stone of souls. In hell, the absence of death and the stone of souls plunged the underworld into chaos. The three prime evils, led by the Lord of Terror, rose to restore order to the infernal realm. The Lord of Heaven, intent on crushing them in their infancy, refrained, for their destruction would plunge hell back into anarchy. Knowing the Most High would not dare act, the Lord of Terror devised a scheme to topple heaven by reclaiming the sacred stone. His trump card. Lucifer, the supreme commander of heaven's hosts. War, chains of the red horse. The red horse, emblem of righteous fury in war, has long symbolized danger, warning, and unyielding might. When the thunderous roar of war's slaughtering legion echoes, foes measure their existence in fleeting seconds, their prayers drowned by despair. War, Veovis, and his spectral army swept through the land like a devouring flame, reducing fortresses, homes, and fields to ash. Armed with two supreme weapons of heaven and earth, war struck terror into gods and demons alike. The left arm, back Sirius, a single blow to the ground summoned an earthquake and a legion of 10,000 undead soldiers. This immortal host could only fall if war knelt or perished, a feat deemed impossible, for even the mightiest warriors of man and divinity revered the one who scorched a quarter of the earth. The sword Acanian, with each foe felled, their soul and prowess flowed into the blade, empowering war further. Its dominion once devoured 10,000 angels in a single clash. War's strength grew boundless, daring to challenge the heavens themselves. Yet war knew not of the 9 celestial vaults, guarded by 4 formidable sentinels. Among them stood the most fearsome, Lucifer, still uncast from grace. The 6-winged seraph, holder of 3 exalted titles, was no mere figurehead. The Lord knew that to counter war's belligerence, a blade as sharp and resolute as Lucifer was required. Thus began the purge, and once more, those radiant wings would be stained with blood. And it came to pass that war, with his legion of darkness, waged fierce battle and set ablaze the strongholds of those who worshipped the Lord of heaven. Yet behold, from the heights above, there resounded a mighty voice, and a radiant glory shone forth, piercing the firmament. Cease thy hands, and return to the abyss of darkness whence ye came. And the light from the cloud swept forth, and wherever it touched, the infernal hosts cried out in torment, withering into ashes. War reined in his steed and lifted his gaze. A smirk crossed his lips, then swelled into a thunderous laugh. Ha ha ha! At last, the heavenly realm sends forth its mighty engine of war. Long have I awaited a foe worthy of true combat, Lucifer. The name of mine shall not be uttered by the mouth of a sinner. With that roar of righteous fury, arrows of light rained down, filling the sky like a storm of divine wrath. Yet war, unperturbed, raised his cloak, and from it blazed a shield of fire, deflecting the myriad shafts. The arrows, repelled by his mantle, turned back upon the warriors nearby, slaying them in their flight. Lucifer, unwilling to suffer further loss, halted the barrage. War, this is a matter between thee and me alone. Come, ascend. Wherefore should I ascend? The earth is strange to thee, prove thy might and descend hither. The challenge stirred not the wrath of Lucifer. The Divine One humbled himself, descending, his feet touching not the ground, but hovering in the void. He gazed upon war, the insolent one who dared to wage war even unto the gates of heaven. War, yield now, ere the anger of the Lord and myself be kindled against thee. Thy deeds of valor are as numerous as thy sins, and I warrant not thy pardon. Damnation take thee. Speak plainly, thou hast no intent to redeem me. It is thou, serpent of cunning, whom the Lord should beware. Silence thy tongue. I love the Father above all, and only a wretch who could not hold his throne, such as thee, is filth unworthy. Then arose the pain of Alcadia within war's soul. He shut his eyes, and the echoes of laughter and music from that peaceful city lingered deep within him. But soon came the flames of war, the blood, and the tears that had run dry. War opened his eyes, and they blazed with fire. The Lord cannot judge me. I am become this because the Lord withdrew his host. Were my prayers unheard by his ears? The lowly Felfim could not have reached my land without.
At this moment, War seemed to grasp something. Yes, of course. To reach Alcadia, one must pass through the 2 gates of the heavenly realm. How had they arrived here without any announcement from the angels? War quickly glanced upward to where Luke reigned aloft. What was he laughing at? By the heavens, War felt his instincts had not failed him. The celestial realm sought to annihilate Alcadia and the Nelphim race. His gaze fell upon the arm of Baxterius. What was he thinking, before letting out a mighty shout? Behold, my people, once more we shall live and die as one. With those words, War thrust his Baxterius arm into the ground, and from the earth arose 10,000 ironclad souls. Unlike the shadowy minions of the underworld, these radiant Nelphim spirits bore the latent power bestowed by the Lord, their strength far surpassing that of others. 10,000 souls fought under War's command. Luke, in silent contemplation, mused, these cannot be summoned in a mere moment, though these must have harbored this intent long before. This threat must be eradicated swiftly, lest it spread to the other faithful. Luke signaled the angels to fall back, while he himself soared forward. The great archangel, in his arrogance, had underestimated the force of those 10,000 souls. These spirits, imbued with the energy of the Lord, could not be swept aside by the halo of angelic light. Luke faltered, surrounded and overwhelmed. With his power, he shattered them, only for them to reform and multiply further. Wounded in many places, Lucifer ascended higher, to where the souls would be forced to relent or be scorched by the sun. War, from behind, lent his support, wielding his Acanian sword to cleave through any angels barring his path. The tide of battle turned in War's favor. Lucifer raised his right hand and summoned the rain lightsaber to strike the souls, yet the radiant spirits remained unscathed by the archangel's mighty blow. War laughed aloud. Ha ha ha. The Lord granted the power of light to dispel darkness, yet it holds no sway over the luminous souls of the Nelphim. In other words, you cannot wield that power to destroy your own kin. Kin, you say? No sooner had Lucifer spoken than, in the blink of an eye, he stood before War, delivering a heaven-shaking fist to the war god's face. Though War blocked the strike, its force was so overwhelming that he was hurled from his steed. Moments later, before War could regain his stance, Lucifer unleashed a second devastating blow, this time landing squarely upon the war god. As their king staggered under the heavy strike, the souls of Alcadia rallied and surged toward Luke. But the great archangel, without so much as a backward glance, tensed his body and extended a hand behind him. What followed was a sight unseen, leaving both War and the other angels in awe.
The white wings of the angel darkened to a pitch-black hue, and Lucifer's entire visage took on an unearthly, demonic air. With a single strike, he unleashed a rain of blood upon the radiant souls, staining more than 10,000 of them with a foul mire, causing them to dissolve or scatter. A barrage of both magical and physical assaults rained relentlessly from Luke upon War. Then, using War's own blood, Luke forged a blood-wrought sword and drove it straight into his foe's chest. The war god cried out in agony. "Damn you, dark sorcery! You too have." Silence. Before War could finish, Lucifer's hand seized his throat and hoisted him into the air. Luke's grip crushed War's neck with terrifying strength, the air thick with malevolent aura and grotesque spectacle. To conquer light with darkness, to vanquish righteousness with evil, what of it? Do not forget that my spear was forged to punish even my own brethren. That is where I differ from them. Humph, excuses, you're no better than I, Luck. War rasped through his throttled throat, his fingers subtly weaving a spell. Suddenly, Luke cried out in torment. Aya, damn you! Unbeknownst to Luke, lost in the fervor of battle, War had hurled his Acanian sword into the radiant souls, allowing it to absorb their righteous essence. As Luke succumbed to his darkened form, the sword, now brimming with the power of light, sped forth to save its master. Reeling from the unexpected strike, Luke flung War aside, clutching his chest where the holy sword had pierced him. The pain was so excruciating that he lost his balance and plummeted downward. Seizing this once-in-a-millennium chance, War bellowed. Baxirius, let the heavens and the earth bear witness to your supreme might. Luke struggled to steady himself, straining to anticipate War's strike, but how could he evade it? The earth-shattering power of that legendary left arm hurtled toward him like a blazing meteor. All the remaining souls of the Nelphim had poured their essence into Baxirius, and with a single blow, it struck Lucifer square in the chest. Reeling from 2 consecutive devastating strikes, Lucifer plummeted to the earth, crashing down and carving a deep crater into the ground. Yet, the great archangel still stood. For the first time, the bare feet of the commander of the Holy Legion touched the mortal soil. His heart burned with humiliation, defeated by an inferior foe, his pride buried in the filthy mire of the human world. The archangel's fury blazed, but his strength had crumbled. That he still lived and stood was a miracle in itself, yet to fight on now would require nothing short of divine intervention. War yanked the blood-forged sword from his own body and whistled for his crimson steed. Mounting his warhorse, he laughed triumphantly. Well, great archangel, how does the dirt beneath your feet feel? Are you pleased to see the game turned against you? Hold your tongue, Luke retorted. You're no better off yourself.
War's expression darkened. Luke was right. His taunt had been a mere psychological jab. Both were equally ravaged by the battle. War, who had long wielded the power of darkness, had now infused himself with the light, creating an internal clash of forces. He had calculated that if those 2 strikes had felled Luke, he would have claimed immense power. But Luke's resilience defied his plans. Uncertain of the archangel's remaining strength, War dared not press forward recklessly. Suddenly, the great archangel collapsed to his knees, black blood spilling forth. The warring forces of light and darkness within him clashed violently. Staggering, Luke fought to rise but failed. Divinity had bowed. Damn you, playing tricks to scare gods and demons alike. Brace yourself for the final blow, noble angel. With those words, War hurled his sword straight toward Luke. Death itself called out to the once mighty ruler of the 7 realms. Luke closed his eyes, resigned to his fate. But as the blade drew within a hand's breadth of Luke's face, it halted. The terrifying force propelling it was met by an even greater power restraining it. The one who had saved Luke was a frail, diminutive figure, slender hands that belied their strength, capable of grasping the hilt of the divine sword as it tore through the air like a gale. It was Gok, the god of movement from the heavenly realm. War roared in fury. "You wretched gatekeeper!" Gok shot a swift glance at War and, with a mighty throw, sent the sword hurtling back toward him, faster and fiercer than before. Then, in an instant, it vanished. War, caught off guard, sensed danger at his back. Instinctively, he ducked as back Sirius streaked overhead from behind. Gok had opened a spatial gate at War's rear, redirecting the sword through another portal to strike from an unexpected angle. Such a trick! Before War could finish, the sword, having flown a short distance past his head, was seized once more by its hilt. Gok had opened 3 spatial gates in sequence, anticipating War's dodge with flawless precision. He had thrown the sword, opened the first gate to redirect it, and then, as War evaded, unveiled a third gate directly before him. Now, the blade rested at War's throat. Gok revealed himself as the true master of calculation, executing 3 moves in perfect succession without a moment's error. The war god glared in rage at his own weapon, now wielded against him by another. "Proof, so you foresaw everything and bided your time." "Indeed," Gok replied. "I know your strength and tactics well, both of you. I am the one who will subdue you, War." War remained astride his crimson steed, but his strength was spent. Gok, meanwhile, brimmed with energy. War's gaze shifted as he spied the white horse of the triumphant rider descending from the heavens. With 2 beings of such power converging upon him, War realized he had misjudged this battle. The King of War had lost his fire. To be continued.